Hello, I'm Digo, a future video game developer, and have you ever wondered what a Five Nights at Freddy's fighting game would be like? It's always fascinated me when a series or a game from a different genre uses its characters to create its own fighting game, and Five Nights at Freddy's has so many unique and iconic characters that would be perfect for a game of this genre. In fact, I myself started to develop my own fighting game using the characters from the first FNAF. And I'd really like to present to you the overall concept I've envisioned for this project by dividing this video into several distinct sections, starting with characters, where I'll delve into their archetypes and their respective fitting environments. Then we'll cover the art, specifically the artistic style and the models utilized. Next, combat, focusing on the gameplay style and its truly unique mechanics, and what might truly capture the interest of many of you, the story itself. Because yes, this game will indeed feature a full story mode. It won't be the deepest story in fiction, in fact, it's just to give context to the game. But I promise you that despite its simplicity, you'll like it. If you want to know what the story mode will be like, you'll have to stay until the end of the video, as it will be the last section I'll cover, since the first section will be... This will be a fan game of the first one, meaning only the animatronics from this Five Nights at Freddy's will be included, since it's the game with the fewest characters, and well, it's the first one. So it's the best option to start a fighting game. The idea is that right from the start, you'll get the 4 original animatronics and choose which one best suits your playstyle. The first one I'd like to talk about is a favorite of many, including myself, Foxy. His stage would be the Pirate's Cave, since, well, it's where he lives, so it's the place that best represents the character and his playstyle. Taking into account the character and his personality, it will clearly be a rushdown. Perhaps you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan who doesn't know much about the definition of fighting games, so I'm going to explain it to you. Rushdown is an archetype. These serve to classify the fighting style of each character. There are many archetypes, but in total there are 4 main ones, and one of these would be the Rushdown, a fast character with quick and constant attacks, great aerial and ground mobility, and short range combos. Perfect for Foxy, as he's the fastest and most agile animatronic of the 4 originals. And what's more, they're famous for their aggressive gameplay, which fits Foxy's personality, since in the movies and books he's shown to be the one who attacks the protagonist the most, making him the character who best fits his archetype and possibly the one I'll use most. The next character would be the Chicken. Her stage would be the kitchen. It's quite obvious why I chose this place, because she's a woman. It has the best connection to this place. Aside from its canonical love for pizza, it's always in this location in all its appearances, like in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, the only one to enter there. In UCN, it has a unique mechanic in the kitchen, and in the films, it commits its first murder in this place. But we've talked enough about its setting, so let's move on to what archetype it would have. And this would be a Sonar, a character who primarily focuses on using projectiles. Their goal is to control space and keep opponents at a distance, as they're not the best in close combat. This fits perfectly with Chica, since she always uses her cupcake to attack, or at least in the movie, so she could use it as a projectile to maintain distance, as she's the only one without a weapon for close quarters advantage. This is a heavy projectile, so it would deal a lot of damage on impact, but considering she only has one, I'd need to program a mechanic for it to return to her hand, so she couldn't just spam it wildly. I'd also have to figure out how to balance it so Chica isn't left so unprotected. Maybe I'll also add an option to throw plates. Anyway, let's move on to the third character, which would be Bunny. His stage would be the parts and service room, since it's the most iconic location for the character. Also, this stage absolutely had to be in the game, though I'd obviously need to enlarge it to make it playable, as this will give Bunny a big advantage, since he'd be a grappler, as the name implies, specializing in grabs. Close range combat, characterized by high health, large size, and reduced mobility. Thanks to his guitar and rabbit ear, Bunny seems like the biggest character of the trio, although he actually has the same body model and could have the strongest and heaviest hits thanks to his guitar. Freddy, the protagonist, not only of the franchise, but of the main trio. His stage? Well, obviously it will be the stage, since he's the leader of the group, so he's the most prominent. Also, he's the last to appear on camera, given how the game is programmed, so I don't think we need to overthink this. Know his archetype, as I believe the Shoto archetype, created by Ryu from Street Fighter, would suit him perfectly. It's characterized by being balanced, possessing a projectile, an anti-air attack, and a forward attack, offering versatility at short, medium, and long range. This isn't a universal rule, it doesn't apply to all games, but normally this character style is reserved for protagonists, as it's typically used to learn the basic mechanics, and that's why the game's face is used for this archetype. However, this isn't the only reason, as many of the movements would fit perfectly, but I'll discuss that when we cover the topic of mechanics. So for now, let's leave the subject here. This would be all the characters in the game. The 4 animatronics have the 4 main archetypes of fighting games, perfect for someone who's just starting with the genre. So let's move on to the next section. For this game, I'll be utilizing VivaPop artist models, which are characterized by their distinct cel shading style. This is a rendering technique specifically designed to make 3D graphics appear like hand-drawn illustrations, reminiscent of comics or anime. The entire game will consistently feature this distinctive style, including all the environments, although I'll either have to create those myself or commission an artist to produce them. I've already added a stage, but I got this one from the internet and it's just for testing. It won't be in the final game, as it clashes too much with the cartoon style I want. I also believe this art style fits a fighting game better than the semi-realistic style of the original models. Furthermore, it gives me more freedom to stretch and break the models, allowing for more mobile animations like other 3D fighting games. That said, I'll be using 3D models, but this game will be 2D, as I'm employing an old technique called pre-rendered graphics. It's an iconic visual technique from video games of the 90s and early 2000s, which consists of generating complex 3D graphics on a powerful computer before integrating them into the game as static images or videos. So, I'll create animations using 3D models in Blender, but I'll export them as images and then convert them into sprites. It's quite interesting because I use models with a style that attempts to emulate a flat drawing, yet I employ a specific technique to transform these 3D models into truly flat two-dimensional images. This is how you can create a cartoon style game without actually knowing how to draw. Alright, now let's move on to the mechanics and the combat system in general. I really should have started with this first section, but if I had brought up this topic, half of the audience would have left. So let's begin with what's most obvious. This will be a 2D fighting game, let's say, in the style of Street Fighter or the King of Fighter. This will be 1 versus 1.
Some people want me to make it a tag team que posen on kotiki kosatimas, meaning you could swap characters mid-match. But since this game will only have a few animatronics, literally one team would be half of the entire cast. So it's better to simplify it, pause, and just keep it as a one-on-one game.
I'd like the attack system to be just 3 normal strikes, a light, a medium, and a heavy. And the 4th button left on the controller, usually in fighting games, throws are performed with a button combination. I would assign the grab action to a dedicated button, so you could perform aerial grabs, or simply make this action more comfortable. However, you can't execute very long combos with just 3 hits and a single grab. That's precisely what special moves are designed for. These are attacks executed through a button combination that can deal more damage than a normal hit, or open up the possibility for more combos. As an example, we could take Freddy. Let's say if you press down, then forward, plus medium punch, he throws his microphone, which acts as his projectile. Like Yoto, I would like each character to have 3 special moves, 1 assigned to each button. These are not supers, meaning they don't consume an energy bar. We can use them whenever we need to, because I'm not really going to include an energy bar, or at least a standard one found in classic fighting games, as I'd like to add a unique mechanic for each character. This would be called the Jumpscare. This would be the ultimate attack for each animatronic, where you can launch a first-person animated attack from your opponent's perspective, with your animatronic screaming in their face. This can only be performed after certain specific conditions are met. It will be different for every single character. I'll give you an example, the Jumpscare I envisioned for Freddy. This will have an energy percentage of 100%, which slowly drops to 0, and another bar representing energy consumption. This, like in Five Nights at Freddy's one, will be represented in 3 colors: green, yellow, and red. This bar fills up when you can execute several consecutive hits. This bar represents the percentage of energy you're spending. If it's green, you're not spending much, but if you achieve a long combo and keep the color red, you'll be able to drain their energy quickly. However, the bar disappears if you stop hitting your opponent. It's easy to keep the color green, but red disappears shortly after finishing the combo, and if you didn't even have a green bar, the energy expenditure would be 0. But what happens when you reach 0? Well, the Jumpscare won't activate automatically. Instead, Freddy would stay completely still. If the other character hits the bear, the light turns off and the cinematic would activate. We'd then switch to Freddy's opponent's point of view, seeing only total darkness, until we'd start to hear classical music and some bright eyes would begin to flicker in the darkness. They would slowly, gradually draw closer. You would then hear footsteps mixed with children's laughter, shifting their positions with short yet constant pauses, until at a specific point the music would completely stop playing. You might also wonder what happens if the other player doesn't hit Freddy. The lights go out but no animation plays, and the bear can't use his most powerful attack anymore. However, due to the lack of light, he'd get a speed bonus of 10, 50, or even 100%. Honestly, I didn't think of a specific number. Even if the juke fails, it still has an advantage over its opponent until the battle ends. Obviously, this entire energy mechanic is exclusive to Freddy. Every animatronic's juke has to be performed in a different way. As another example, I can use Chica. This one doesn't have an energy bar or percentage that goes up or down with hits, but instead it has 8 slices of pizza, since canonically she loves this Italian food. With a special command, you can eat a pizza slice to regain some health, but it also slightly reduces your speed. After eating the whole pizza, you'll get a chance to launch a juke anytime. Your cupcake would shoot towards the other player, and if it connects, its final animation would begin. Like all jukes in this game, it would completely drain the other player's health bar, even if it's full. However, unlike Freddy, she gains no advantage if you fail to land her ultimate. In fact, she couldn't try her Junker again to recharge health, having no more pizzas. She'd even still have the speed debuff from eating too much greasy food. Now, you might be thinking this attack is pretty bad compared to Freddy's, but actually, I don't really think that's the case, because this particular attack is much easier to land than Freddy's Junker. For the bear's attack to truly work, the opposing player needs to be distracted and then take a hit. Also, thanks to the slices you add before the Junker, the yellow chicken should still have plenty of life. I could tell you what Foxy and Bonnie's attack would be like, but I'd much rather leave it up to you. What do you imagine the mechanics and animations of their Junker would be, considering their archetype and unique mechanics from the original games? Also, let me know in the comments what you thought of this mechanic. Personally, I truly believe this could be the best aspect of the game, something that genuinely represents the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and also a mechanic that could make the game quite unique. And since I'm already asking for things, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like, as that will really help me finish the game.
In 1985, 5 children were stripped of their lives by a monster dressed as a rabbit. What should have been nothing more than a forgotten tragedy did not end there. Another soul, also a victim of the killer, marked by resentment, yet still capable of love and empathy, granted them the most precious gift, the gift of life. Their souls were sealed inside 5 animatronics, bodies of metal, cold, empty, condemned to exist for decades, trapped between the smell of death and the passage of time. Year after year, their hatred grew, not only toward their killer, but toward their own fate, until one day they discover that he will return. But not all of them seek the same thing. 5 souls, 5 wills, 5 different ways of facing the past, and when their interests collide, peace is no longer an option. Only one will be able to lead. Only one will decide the fate of them all. The animatronics will fight each other to prove who is the strongest and who will take control. In 5 nights, the fate of these souls will be decided.
This would be an introduction to the story. After decades of the missing children incident, he would return to the pizzeria. But each soul has a different idea of how to confront the situation, which clash with each other, so they will decide it in a childish way. Through a series of fights, they'll determine the strongest animatronic, who will then take control of the group, deciding their actions when the killer arrives. This story mode won't be cinematic like Mortal Kombat, due to budget constraints. Instead, it's arcade style, divided into 5 fights, each representing one night. The first 3 would involve fighting other animatronics, and night 4 would be a sub-boss fight against a copy of your animatronic, but completely black. Some say it's the manifestation of the soul's agony, others a hallucination caused by so many years trapped, and a few believe it's because the game's developer didn't want to work on making other recolors, and so he just painted them black. Anyway, this would be your second most difficult fight, but if you get through it, you go straight to night 5, the final boss, Golden Freddy. He is the most powerful animatronic, and therefore, he would be the current leader of all the souls, and if you want to be the new leader, you have to defeat him. Its setting would be the office, since it's the only place where we can see the yellow bear. and without a doubt it would be the best option for the final fight. And if you win the fight, it will give you the corresponding ending for the chosen character, where it will show you their choice after having taken control of the group. Each ending will be different from the others, taking into account the animatronic's personality. The game will have at least 4 endings, 1 per animatronic, and although this isn't the most complex story mode, it fulfills its purpose. These would be the general ideas for the project, but not all of them, as there are details I didn't mention, because they would make the video too long. I'd also like to keep a few surprises, and I might even add things I didn't initially plan to include. Also, in the not too distant future, I'll be opening a Discord server, as many of you asked for it to help with the project. It might take a little while cause I haven't the slightest idea how to create or manage one. From now on, I'll be uploading a video every single Sunday. No excuses, nothing. But with nothing more to say, goodbye.